Good evening, everybody. How are you? It is me, Tanya, Pastor Tanya from Worship and Wellness. Thank you for joining us this evening. Pardon me, because I was so thirsty during the countdown. I decided to chug a lug my little tea and spilled everything everywhere. Lord have mercy. But I was not going to be late missing you all so we can have this discussion. So, hello, talk to me. Let's see who is in the house. Elizabeth Jackson is always on duty. Hey, Lady Jackson, how you doing, Miss Lady? It's so good that you joined us tonight. We got Dr. Kane, so you don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss this. You usually don't miss it anyway, but it's so good that you join us. Who else is in the house? I'm looking forward for you guys to start chiming in. Last week we had an amazing worship in wellness week. Holy macaroni, it was so good. It was so good. We have really good um, uh, people who came on to talk about different topics. Hey, Tandra, so good to see you, sweetie. Who talked about different topics: emotional, social, intellectual. If you didn't get a chance to join us live, please go back to Worship and Wellness. You can find them there. You don't want to miss it. It's such a wealth of information, such a wealth of just knowledge that it is our responsibility to take that information and do something with. Hey, Elder George, we got the family on tonight. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, share it, share it, share it. Okay, so if you're watching right now, I need you to do me a favor. Just do me this real quick favor. Share. Click. If you're watching on Facebook, click the share button, because somebody you know that knows you, that's watching what you do, because everybody's watching everybody, will watch this live. So all you gotta do is just click the share button, and so that it can go live on your page. And then talk about it, right? Like when it's over, share. Hey, listen, when you get a chance, go to the Worship and Wellness page or go to Fresh Start page, because we'll be there. So I'm excited that you're here. It's so interesting to me. It's always interesting to me how people are very, very interested in so many other things, but when it comes down to wellness, it's the one area that we're like, oh yeah, 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 or we seem to think that we're better off than we are. Wellness encompasses so much. We rely so heavily on God, and God is saying, I'm also relying on you. There are things. Faith without works is dead. There are things that you are looking for, but you can't get it unless you are ascertaining the information, the knowledge, and then applying it. Right? It doesn't make sense to say I'm looking for the Lord to bless me with a new house, but you don't understand the fundamentals of the financial side of it. Go watch Financial Wellness. We have to be educated so that we can operate better. Hey, Vanessa. Look, Vanessa said, I have shared. Thank you, Vanessa Bass. I'm so glad that you joined us. All right, let's join Vanessa in sharing, because why? We believe in Worship and Wellness that sharing is caring. So I am, as you're still chiming in, as people chiming in, one more thing you can do is tag somebody. What do you mean when you say tag, Tanya? I want you to do this. Do the at sign and the person's name. No space. So at Tanya, and then their name should pop up, and then you can say something. So at Tanya, join me, right? At Elizabeth Jackson, join me. At Tandra Calvert, join me, right? So that they know that you're thinking about them. So tonight I am going to bring on, with no further ado, my guest tonight. Love her dearly. She is an amazing quiet giant. Okay, she's a quiet giant. Like if you see her, you think like, oh, she's quiet, she's so nice, she's so sweet, but she is a huge giant in the field of education, in the field of just being a woman of integrity. She is an amazing woman of God, and I'm so excited to be connected to people who are not only spiritual, not only professional, but just really down to earth people. And that is none other than Dr. Kane. I'm bringing you on. Hey!
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. That is a fabulous introduction. That excited me. Thank you.
It's true. It's true. I mean, we've known each other for quite some time, but even just working in the education sector myself in the public school system, and then just getting connected and to learn. Even every now and then when you would come into the schools where I worked, just the little small tips of wisdom you would give me, like, oh my God, that was a gem. Let me put that right in my pocket. And I appreciate that. So I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you. I appreciate that introduction. I appreciate you and all that you're doing. Particularly, this Worship and Wellness series has been phenomenal, and people need this. The people need this. So thank you for your leadership here. Appreciate
Absolutely. It. Thank you so kindly. So let's get into this discussion about education. But before I do, I want you to tell the people a little bit about you and your background and why you are highly qualified to have this conversation. Okay. And then talk about what you believe education means to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, before you start, every now and then, if it looked like I disappeared, I forgot to tell you this in the beginning. It's not because the rapture came, and it's not because I'm leaving you by yourself. It's just because you're saying some real good stuff, and I think people need to focus on you and not me. Okay?
Gotcha. Thanks. So a little bit about me. So my background, I've got 30 years in public education. Actually, going back further than that, I started out as a bank manager. But I did. I majored in economics and became a bank manager. Wow. So education, in a sense, is my second career, but my true love. And while I was in banking, I thought, I'm spending a lot of time doing something that I don't love. And I was an assistant to a Sunday school teacher as a teenager at my church that I grew up at, St. Francis in East Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And Miss Joyner was so influential for me that I just loved the work that we did together, and decided I wanted to be a teacher. I thought I was going to be a high school English teacher. But as it turned out, I was an elementary school teacher and sort of matriculated through the ranks in Anne Arundel County Public Schools for about 23 years. So I did everything from become a substitute teacher to associate superintendent over 125 schools in the district. And had just such wonderful experiences learning as an adult learner. Went back to college because I had to do that. I majored in economics, not education. So I had to go to the community college, Anne Arundel Community College, to get some prerequisite courses so that I could get into a teacher ed program. Did that and just kept going. So I became a teacher and assistant principal, worked at central office, did a lot of different things there, assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, which was my master's degree concentration, and got certified for administration, and just loved every moment of it. And around about 2014, I left Anne Arundel County and went to Richmond City Public Schools under the leadership of a fabulous leader, Dr. Dana Bedden, who remains one of my mentors, as does Kevin Maxwell, who, if you recall, was the superintendent in Queen Anne's County for quite some time. And left Richmond, I was appointed to superintendent in Queen Anne's County, and stayed there for 4 years. The last year having some real challenges with racism there, and some folks may recall the story that was in the New York Times this past fall about my experience there. And right now, I am just blessed to be with University of Pennsylvania as a professor of practice, having been a practitioner and in education leadership, and am able to influence our current, sitting leaders and aspiring leaders. So I work with people working on their master's degrees and people working on their doctoral degrees. So it has just been a beautiful learning experience, a beautiful ride, and still working hard at it, still grinding like we do. And it just means so much to be able to share my story and my experiences, to help others.
Yeah, that what a journey. Oh my God. You should be they say board of education should be board of Dr. Kane or Andrea Kane, because my God, you have just such a wealth of experience to share, and I that's a lot. Like I couldn't even was counting that. Man, that's a lot. That's really good. So tell me, with all that you have just shared in all of the different areas, especially where you are now, when we're talking about education, we're really speaking from the perspective of the adult learner, right?
Mhm.
And oftentimes you hear people who may have a desire or an interest, and but they don't take those steps for whatever fears or concerns. And I'm going to highlight a couple. But the word before I highlight what some of the challenges are, and we can talk a little bit about that. One of the things we always hear is the word says, study to show thyself approved, right? You got to study to show thyself approved. It's easy to say, I know this, I know that, I'm interested in this, I have some experience doing certain things. But even in anything that you're gifted in, you still need to study your craft. If you love baking, great, continue to bake, but then study the craft of baking. Who are the big gurus in baking? What is the area of baking that is your love? Go and get some classes and education on what it is that you do, so that you can speak articulately about it, right? And so there are some, topics that we oftentimes hear, well, I would go back to school, especially as an adult learner. You'll hear this one a lot. I don't have a lot of time, balancing work and family commitments while having to do school, and how I don't think I can do that. Or financial barrier. And we know one thing about education, unfortunately, it can be a money suck, right? And so financial barriers is an issue, because we either, if you don't have the money, you're looking at taking loans, and if you're taking loans, that creates a whole nother financial barrier that would be tackled on the financial wellness side.
That's right.
The other piece is mindset, flexibility, or support, or the lack thereof. So talk what are your thoughts on any of that was just shared? Like, why you think sometimes people kind of limit themselves in going back or not going back?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And, it's interesting because, in preparation for tonight, I started to jot down some notes about, what some of the barriers are that adults have for not continuing their education, or, getting serious about education. And you just mentioned most of them, which says, great, we're on the same page.
Yes,
So that's great. And this sort of education is about, to me, is about finding ways to continue to learn, right? Yeah. So setting a person up, yes, to learn, but understanding how we learn, understanding what's important to learn, and the timeliness of learning. All those things adult learners have to contend with. And yes, finances become an issue, time becomes an issue, childcare sometimes becomes an issue, finding a network of support becomes an issue. And then there's that self-doubt. Can I really do this? We look at things like our age, we look at things like our gender, women in leadership and women going back to school. It presents itself as quite different from males who want to do the same thing. So I do have to mention gender in there, because there is quite a difference for many women. So those are some of the things that really create barriers, I think, for adult learners, that we really do have to find a way to overcome. Because, I can say for myself, in my own situation, my experiences in life and my pathway, the way that I have matriculated life has been different from some of my colleagues or some of my family members who did not go to college. And let me make this clear. I am not suggesting, nor will I ever suggest in a million years, that college is the only thing, the only option for people, because it's not. It
Mhm.
depends on what you want to do with your life. You know, if you wanted to be a plumber, or if you want to be an electrician, or if you want to be sometimes even, you know, a graphic designer, or things like that, you may not choose the pathway of a 2 or 4 year college experience. You may choose the pathway of a training program or a certification program, getting on the job training.
Yeah.
So it isn't that everybody needs to sit down in a 2 or 4 year college, because there are other options in 2022 to have a life that is fulfilling. I chose the route of university. I chose to go to college. So that was the pathway I took because of the profession that I wanted to have. And I have to say, God has blessed me, and it has worked for me. My oldest son went to college, and God has blessed him, and it has worked for him. My youngest son did not go to college. God has blessed him, and he's doing what he needs to be doing. So, you know, it just really depends on the pathway that we want to take, whether the barriers that we decide that we're going to have to overcome, because college is one way, training, professional development, certification programs, there are a myriad of opportunities out there for folks who are considering going back to school, or just starting out, you know, at a later stage in life.
I'm glad you said that because I definitely wanted to tackle that, because sometimes that is a misconception. I have to go to a traditional 2 or 4 year, but that's why I use the example about baking. Maybe you're not going to a 2 year, 4 year college to learn or to better your skills on cooking. Maybe you are going to a culinary program, or maybe you are a contractor and you're going back to take some courses so you can get licensed in the state where you are. I'm a real estate agent. Yes, I didn't go to college 4 years, 2 years to get my degree in, business or accounting, but I did have to go through a certification program in order to get licensed. And
Mhm.
so I think it's important to know not only what you need, but then write it out. So here we believe in biblical principles with practical steps. So throughout the conversation, feel free to drop some tools, some tangible, practical tools. Here's tool number one, and I'll say my first tool. Write it out. Write out. So I did a program called Daddy's Girls Lifestyle, and one area we did was our goals. Right, we did a board of our goals. So we would pick one physical goal, spiritual goal, natural goal,
Mhm.
and let's say if it was going back to school, then write it out. Write it out down to the lowest common denominator. What's the first thing you need to do? Maybe you got to do the research to find out.
Right.
Or even before that, identify what you want to go to school for, right? Why do you want to go? Why you want to go? Why come you want to go to school, right? Like, what is the reason you feel that you need to do this? Number one. Number two, then research it. Research the different schools, that program that you're interested in. Three, talk to somebody after school, and I want you to tag on to that piece about the talking to someone maybe at the education. So just write it down. Sometimes you just got to write it down. The word of God says, write the vision, make it
Yes.
plain, so they that see it will know that it's there, it's there, it's there. You see it. I got it. Okay, I got it. And though it tarry, okay, so sometimes it may take a little while before it comes.
Yep.
But when it's time, at the appointed time, it's going to do what it needs to do. Those that see it, they're going to take it. They can run with it. That also means maybe it's you're going back to school and you're writing it, but it's so funny. I'm jumping. I apologize. But I had a vision board at one point for real estate. And that board for that year, I said, I want to make 50,000 more than I normally make. That was my goal. So I kind of put things on there and I put it in the, in the literally like right where we live. You come off the living room and then you cut the corner to go upstairs. So it was somewhere that other people would see it. And every now and then, if we did have guests, we said, "What's this?" It would remind me I got work to do. Right.
Yeah.
Or they would say, "Oh, Tanya, how you making out with your board?" Right. Like, that scripture also is not only for you, but for others. When they see it, it will hold you accountable to what you want to do. So writing it out does so many different things. But share with me your thoughts in regards to how can people, who should people talk to? Maybe I am thinking about it and I just don't know which way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just affirming what you've already said. I can recall when I went to college the first time, I wrote down the courses, right, that I wanted to take on index cards, and I put the semester that I was going to take those courses. So I planned out my whole college experience on index cards when I was a freshman. And I decided that I wanted to finish in 3 years instead of 4 years. At the time, I was dating a young man who I ended up marrying, and I wanted to get married, right? And so he was 2 years ahead of me, and he was going to take an extra year. So I figured if I took one less year, we could graduate at the same time. So, and guess what? It did. It worked out that way. So that is just proof positive of write the vision, write it down so you can see it. And I am going to add on to what you said, and add an accountability partner, right? Because there needs to be somebody to hold us accountable to the things that we envision for ourselves. Because sometimes we get sidetracked, we get distracted. A million things can happen within the course of a day, a week, a month, a year. And any of them could be a reason for us to get off track and say, I'm going to put this off for a little bit of time and maybe miss our real opportunity for doing that. Yeah. And I want to also add that when you contact the university or the college, wherever it is that you're going to continue your education or pick up in a place where you wish you had started some time ago, however it's going to happen, I would suggest to definitely talk to the program coordinator or the program manager for the field of study that you want to go into, and find out what's really the deal here. How long is it really going to take me? Are there extra things? Do I have an opportunity to take courses that are not within maybe my major, but I have interest in? And most definitely, let's talk to somebody about financial aid. And let's be clear on one thing. When you talk about financial aid, don't just talk about loans, because you will be surprised. And I'm telling you, I didn't realize this until I got to University of Pennsylvania. There are sometimes opportunities for grants, sometimes, and definitely I knew about work programs, but work programs are absolutely an opportunity to defray some of the costs. You might not be making six figures, obviously, if you're doing a work program, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to defray some of the costs of the tuition. And it's also an opportunity to collaborate with, engage with individuals, departments within the college, university, training school, or whatever it is that you're going to do. And those opportunities can turn into opportunities to collaborate, can turn into opportunities for employment after the program is over. You just never know. So definitely reach out to that university or that training program. Talk to people, program managers, financial aid, all of those. And if there's an opportunity for an open house, or where you can come into the school and hear from the faculty about the programs, opportunities to collaborate, definitely do that. I mean, as adults, it's a rare occasion that we get to drop what we were doing and go to school full time. So if you're able to do that, fabulous and wonderful. But if you're not able to do that, your time is precious. And that means you're going to school part-time. You probably work in the other time, raising a family. Life doesn't stop because we want to go and continue our education. Yeah. So we have to find those opportunities that are presented by people. So I say all of that to say, get out there, talk to people, find out what the opportunities are for you.
Thank you for saying that, because that is a big deal, that financial piece, and how oftentimes we think the only way we can fund our educational experiences is through student loans, right? I don't want to say it's the devil, but in my life it was the devil. No, it wasn't the devil.
It's,
Was a
it's,
bad.
it's not holy. I can tell you
And
that.
it's not holy. It's not. And when I was going back to school, there was so much. There was a lot of predatory practices that was happening around student loans, and you're young, you don't know. And I was a bad steward. I am a product of being a bad steward with financial aid. You know, you think, oh, I'm gonna take out this financial aid. Oh, we got extra money. Oh, put that extra money in your pocket, and come to find out you still owing stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
with a whole lot of interest.
Tons of interest that you don't think exists, because they initially say you don't have no interest when you, it's there. You just, again, there's so many opportunities, whether it's grants, and I love the fact that you said be open to taking these ventures, because you never know who you run into. It might be your next employer.
That's
that
right.
person might be able to give you a recommendation to where you're trying to go. But sometimes we do take the road less traveled because it's easier, or in our mind it's easier. But then we live with this place of guilt, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? And that's only going to be more damaging, emotionally to us, and mentally to us, than taking the chance and recognizing maybe this wasn't the best time. Here's another piece I want to tackle: being open, or being cognizant when is the best time to go back, right? So I'm on both sides of the fence with this, because sometimes you hear people say there's no good time, just do it, right? But as an adult learner, depending on what's circumventing around your world, there has to be a designated time. I remember when my children were, I was in school when my children were young, but I had to space it out a particular way so that I wasn't, I didn't want to steal the thunder from my son when he was graduating from school, because I was getting ready to graduate. My baby girl, I had to be mindful about what I was doing and how I was doing it, and the timing of things. Thoughts around that?
Yeah, timing matters. I have to agree with that. I think back, just like you just did, I think back to myself when I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree. I had young children, babies. And it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
And then, my children, who are boys or men now, they were in all kinds of sports, and I'm the mom that's on the ball field, head in a book, and the parent next to me saying, "Did you see your son? Did you see that? Did you see that catch?" And I'm like, what? Because so many things going on. So timing does matter, and I can also remember. So I did that, and it took a lot of rearranging for my family at the time, because I found that I would be up at 5 o'clock in the morning cooking dinner, because I would not be, in the house when the kids got back home. So, I'm cooking dinner, making lunches at 5 in the morning just to make it work. I'm picking up the youngest one from the half day, preschool, to take him to the babysitters on my lunch break, going to school in the afternoons. It takes that's why I say you have to have a support system, a support network, because it's quite frequent that we can't do this by ourselves. But I also remember deciding that I wanted to work on my doctoral degree, and I started, and then I ended up stopping. I took 3 classes, and I said, this is not the right time. My kids were older, but they weren't out of school. My oldest was in 9th grade, first year in high school. My youngest was starting middle school. And I just found that it wasn't working for my family, and I was missing too much. And that was my personal decision, that I didn't want to miss some of those times like I had missed when they were younger. So I made the decision to delay it. And I delayed it. And when I wanted to go back to school, my oldest was in college, but I couldn't go back that first year because financially it wasn't going to work. We both could not be in school at the same time.
Right.
At one point we were, but it was, it was definitely calculated. And you got to think about who's going to do pickups from school, who's going to make sure that homework is done, who's going to be available for extracurriculars, who's going to support my kids, socially, emotionally, and just how am I going to ensure that they understand that I'm still here for them when I'm not at all the events. You know what I mean? So there has to be some understanding of how the family is going to work and how everybody is still going to get, for the most part, what they need, from you. So timing is important.
And then your own support system for yourself, right?
That's right.
So often you're thinking about all those pieces that you said, who's going to be there for the kids? Who's going to make sure they're fit? I remember those days. We weren't going to sports, but I used to call myself trying to be a good mom and say, okay, we're going to have family time. We're going to watch a movie. And I was on the couch and the kids was like, yay, they knew they had to sit right at the side of the couch, and I'm on the couch, but I was out like a light. And I don't know if they remember them times, but I remember. And then I knew that when I had to put them to sleep, that was my school focused time. So now at 10 o'clock, now that I done dozed off at the movie we were supposed to be watching, I'm now up typing a report or doing my homework or whatever it is. But it is a commitment, right? It is a commitment. And you got to make sure not only that all of those other pieces, Dr. Andrea said, you also have to find out who's also going to pour into you. Now, here's a scripture that I want to highlight, which is Psalms 32:8. And it says, I will instruct you and teach you in the ways you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. And I think that's the NIV version. And I think that's so key for two reasons. One, God will still guide you, even if you're making a decision and you're finding that you're feeling stressed out or whatever. God still will instruct you. Take a nap. Stop. Walk away. This paper ain't working right now. Go fix dinner, right? Like God, even in the little things, if we allow him, he will instruct us because he's always watching us all the time. All the time. But we have to be willing to put him in the midst or in the middle of all that we have going on.
And that is so true. And it just reminds me of, even with all the life, that we as adults have going on, and, with families and with work, and if our choice is to go back to school or to take some classes for something, we have to prioritize God. We have to, question is this God's plan for my life? Am I supposed to go down this path? And we have to give ourselves a minute to wait for the answer. Right. Sometimes we chug ahead. And I'm guilty, myself. I think I sit down and I create this plan and I think, okay, I got this mapped out. I know how I'm going to do it. I'm big on planning. And then God said, not right now. Right. Not right now. He might not be saying no, but sometimes he's saying not right now. And if you're hard-headed like me, sometimes it takes a minute to get that, like literally 3 classes. That's a couple of semesters for me at that time, before I was listening and realized, okay, what you are giving up is not worth this personal fulfillment, right? Not right now. So we have to prioritize God, and we have to put ourselves in a position to not be so busy that we can hear from God and understand what his will is for our life, because we can spend a whole lot of time wasting time if we go on our own plan, right? So I just wanted to add that.
I'm so glad that you said that. And, with that made me think about go easy on yourself, right? Because sometimes we do have our plan. Like if I see it, I'm moving towards it, right? Like there's right. So I know the Lord probably got, I have a particular feeling about when I see parents that have the little rope thingies on their
Yeah.
children
Yeah.
that, whether it's on their hands and then they go. But I honestly think God might got one of them on me because I'm that kid that he got to pull me back. And he show it to me. I'm going, oh, I can do that. Boom. And he's like,
Right.
pull it back, right? But the truth of the matter is you gotta allow yourself to be easy on yourself.
Yeah.
Not beating yourself up because I hear so often people like, I should have did this. I should have did that a long time ago. I should have already had my degree. I should have already went back to school, right? And so we're beating up ourselves because we feel we missed a time that maybe we did, or maybe we didn't, and it wasn't the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And being okay that whether you're doing it today or you're doing it tomorrow, that God's plans for us don't change. It's our plans that change. We think because our plans change, that means God's plans change, and it didn't. If God desires for you to get that educational law degree that you are sitting on, guess what? Whether you do it at 20, whether you do it at 50, God's plan was still his plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, be okay in yourself if you feel like I've missed the mark. If you did, all you can do is repent, ask God to forgive you, and open up that door if it is your desire to do it. Because it's God's desire that you do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, sometimes God may not be saying no, but he might be saying not right now, and his plan for us is his plan for us. And I mean, I was in my 50s when I earned my doctoral degree. But I tell you what, it was something that God had laid in my heart that was what I was going to do. And it took a long time and a lot of blood, sweat, brain cells, and everything else. But it came to fruition on his time. And so, we have to be into to what God says. And I can't say enough that we get so busy, and I'm guilty, right?
Yeah.
But I have learned, in over the years to mentor, coach, counsel others, not to let this job overwhelm them.
Wow.
Right? Because it's just not worth it. I tell people, if you marry, your job is to stay married.
Yeah.
If you are right, for real, because I'm here to tell you, it can go the other way real fast. Okay. There's somebody else that you got to be looking out for besides your own self. If you're a parent, you got to be a parent. You got to do what you're in this world to do. Right. And so we can't busy ourselves so much that we're no longer hearing from God. Because that puts us in a dangerous position to waste time and to not live our life with purpose and live in our purpose.
That's so good. Let's shift gears just a little bit about speaking. Well, it's not really shifting gears because you just tagged on as a parent. It's our job to operate but that is our God. That is our God-given responsibility, right? We, some of us have the ability to drop our own children off somewhere else, but the truth of the matter is they're still our responsibility, right? And so with that being said, for parents, being someone who has been a part of the Board of Education field for so long, on the K through 12 level, what are your suggestions and recommendations to parents and how to not only be present for their children, right? But even those that are getting ready to pursue college or, starting to look at their next, and understanding to learn the difference of their children, right? We mentioned this before. Everyone is not designed to go to a traditional institution, 2-4 year institution. So
So, for families, for parents, and yes, I did say if you're a parent, that's your job to be a parent. And so do that. And that's what I would suggest. Yes, definitely. And I know parents hear this all of the time from teachers and principals and
Yeah.
superintendents, be involved, be involved. But what does that look like for a
Mm,
parent, right, who
mm,
is working, raising children, possibly back in school themselves? Well, it does mean that, yes, you have got to organize your life in such a way that you are on top of whether or not your children are going to school. That's
that's
number
good.
one,
Good.
particularly if they're older, because children are really smart and they know who's paying attention to them and who's not. And if there's an opportunity to not do something, sometimes kids will take that opportunity so that they can get out of school. So make sure that they're going to school, number one, that they are doing their assignments
Yeah.
while they're in school, and the assignments that are assigned to them for home, whether it's homework or projects or whatever,
Mhm.
and see it. Put your eyes on their work. As a parent, my oldest son was such a great writer when he was in middle school and high school, but he was a boy and he didn't want me reading his stuff. So I wait until he went to sleep. And then at night, I'm going through that backpack. I'm reading those assignments. And I tell you, I would read some of the most wonderful writings. I would call my father. One time I remember I read one of David's papers, and he was talking about his grandfather. And I'm calling my father. It's late at night, 10 o'clock at night, like, Daddy, guess what? I just read what David wrote. Anyway, but so put your eyes
Yeah.
on that work. Don't just take, yeah, I did it as an answer. Put your eyes on that work. Get that teacher's email address. Where can they be contacted, even if it's just for a quick, if they're willing to give a phone number, then take that phone number. Definitely get in touch with the counselors. You want to know your kid's counselor, and your kid's counselor needs to know your child. It should not just be a name on a caseload. Your
Good.
child matters, and that counselor needs to know your child. And not only do they need to be sort of counseling them for where they need to do post high school, whether it's going to be military or community college or four-year college or trade school, or if they're going to work, whatever it might be, they need to know that about your child. And they need to be on their job, and they need to be literally having conversations with your child so that they can support them through it, whether it's through FAFSA, filling out those financial aid forms, doing the ASFAB, whatever it is that they need to be doing. That school counselor needs to be engaged, and they need to know your child's face and name. So I want to make sure I put that out there.
Hold on, before you even go any further, but let's put a pin there. I think that's so key, because
Absolutely.
especially in K through 12, a lot of times the school counselor only knows that child if they got in trouble. And in the world of the African American culture, that is usually the time that we get pegged for these terms, or the child's ADHD, or this child is opposition, or it's because something happened. The child then went to the counselor. We as parents, I appreciate you saying your child should know the counselor, and that counselor should get to know your child, not the paper version of your child, but who that child is. So I appreciate you saying that. That's very key.
Absolutely. That's critical for parents, whether your child is in first grade or 12th grade. They need to know who the counselor is, and the counselor needs to know them, and also, as a parent, not only are you laying your eyes on your child's work, see it, read it, verify that it's up to par, knowing the school counselor, but what's happening at that school? Are they involved in extracurriculars? What's available for my child? Has somebody looked at my child to see if they are able to take advanced placement classes? Are there arbitrary GPAs? Because I'm going to tell you right now, GPAs to take an advanced placement class, that's arbitrary. The school or the school district made it up because College Board doesn't require any particular, and they are in charge of the AP courses. They don't require any particular GPA. That kind of thing has to be challenged by parents who are engaged. That doesn't mean you have to be up at the school all the time. You got a job, you're in school, you got things to do. You don't need to be there all the time, but you definitely need to understand what's happening at that school. Make sure your child is not being overlooked for opportunities, because your child's name can be out there. And if people know that child and can associate that child with positive things, thank you, Pastor Tanya, for saying the things that you just said, because quite frankly, a lot of people of color, their children are sort of stereotyped, and there are negative things that are floating around that just are literally made up, and prejudice and oppressive and all of those things. So make sure that your child is seen in a positive light. You know what's going on at that school, and know who to talk to. Yes, you could talk to the principal. Sometimes that principal is so busy, they might not get back to you right away. That's why I'm mentioning, I see the question. That's why I'm mentioning the school counselor, teachers, assistant principals definitely should know who your child is. And I see that there's a question from Jackie Moore about what's a GPA. A GPA is a grade point average. So if somebody says, and believe me, I have been employed by districts that have these cuts for grade point averages. One school said you had to have a 3.7 grade point average GPA. That's made up. So, and that creates a barrier for some children, particularly children of color, who might not have the highest grades because of a lot of institutionalized racism that happens in schools. Yes, I said it, former superintendent, and I stand behind it because I know people and I know institutions. And so you want to be sure that those arbitrary things aren't preventing your child from having the experience of more rigorous instruction, because everybody does better. Research shows that if you have more rigorous instruction, you fare better in life, whether it is because that you're going to college, whether you're going to work, whether you're going to military, whatever. You're able to matriculate this world better if you have been engaged in more rigorous, thought-provoking instruction.
That's so, and and that follows even through college, because I can remember. So my background is social work, and I remember I was in my social work program, and there was this one professor who, she gave me the blues, but she gave me the blues because I can be a bit challenging.
There's a way to do it though, right?
But it was kind. I wasn't nasty. I wasn't, belligerent. But I also happened, because I was an adult learner, right? So I was going to school, not fresh out of high school. I had some experience in the field, and there were things that were being taught to us that was a little bit contradictory to what I understand is happening in the field. Not that she didn't. So I would often question. I used to call myself the queen of the questions, because I'm gonna ask, what do you mean when you say this? Well, I'm confused, because she was not dealing with this young, because I looked very young, even more young then. She's not dealing with this young woman of color who doesn't have a concept and is just going to eat everything that I am telling her. It becomes a challenge. And so I think about even our children on K through 12, how some of our outspoken or more educated or more knowledgeable children get tagged inappropriately because, you're trying to be smart, or you're trying to be, you're trying to embarrass the teacher. It's not that. It's just, one of my children, our youngest child, very brilliant, very intelligent, but used to get in trouble all the time because she would challenge my husband, very intelligent, and he would get in trouble all the time because so it's our job on two levels as parents, helping our children how to articulate in a way that they're still getting their point across without being disrespectful, but even as an adult learner, being okay to that what you know, and doing whatever you need to do, whether it's writing a letter to the dean, whether it's writing whatever the things are that you need to do, be okay with it. Yes, going to school can be challenging. Yes, all of the pieces to even getting back into school and then being in school, right? Even the walk, even our Christian walk, just because we believe in God doesn't make it easier. There is a process in everything that we do. But if it's what you say you want, you will fight through it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And one thing for sure about adult learners, if you are teaching, as I do, adult learners, you have got to be in touch with that learner's context, right? Past, present, and future. Adult learners come with some experiences, and those experiences should be valued, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
And questions are part of the learning process.
That's so good.
You want a doctor that's the work on you that all they did was sit in a classroom and absorb information? Or do you want a doctor that's going to pose questions and think, well, if I do that, then is this going to happen? Or if she presents with this and not that, where am I going? You want somebody who's going to ask questions. Questions are good. And for somebody to be intimidated, an instructor to be intimidated, maybe they're in the wrong place. Maybe they weren't listening to God. Maybe God said, go do that, where you won't have people questioning you. They decide to go do that.
Right? Sit down, lady.
Exactly. So questions are good. We don't have to be disrespectful when we ask questions. We can say, from my experience, this is what happened. Sure. And I'm finding trouble relating to or understanding the point that such and such a research is making, or that this professor is making, or whatever. So there's definitely ways to pose a question and to challenge a thought or a theory or a practice. And that just goes to show that you're thinking. So I want to encourage people, to do that. It's the instructor's job to understand the context of that adult learner. That adult learner has paid money to come in that classroom and get something. Yeah, and get something. And it's our job to make sure that they get it before they leave.
Absolutely. I so appreciate. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share with our current viewers and those that will watch at a later time around education in any capacity?
I just want to encourage people to, be courageous, be bold, have confidence in yourself. You can do it, right? If God said that there is a pathway for you that's better, that's different from what you're doing right now, just be confident in that and rest assured that if he created a pathway for you, he's going to get you through it. And so, we got to have confidence in that. Walk boldly. God don't want no mealy mouse people walking out there representing him. So go ahead, do it with boldness and be confident that you can do it. Get your support around you. And sometimes your support looks different when you're in school than it looks when you're not in school. Sometimes you have to get some new accountability partners, some new thought partners. Don't be ashamed of that. You're in this for a reason. God's going to get you through it. So use all of your resources. That is definitely something that I want to ensure that people go away with tonight.
I love that. I like the fact you called them thought partners, right? Sometimes accountability can. Sometimes we water that down, or it's so overused that then the value of what an accountability partner. But if you say a thought partner, that means that's somebody who is really taking the time to say, we thought this through. This is not the way we want to go. Or, hey, you're missing the mark. Or, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? I love that. And I love Claudette. She said, do it anyway. That's
hey, Claudette. Yeah, and I know Ms. Bass is on the line as well. Yes, definitely do it anyway, and you won't be upset about it. Nothing beats, like they say, a failure but a try.
Nothing beats a failure but a try. Here, where there is God, to the last point that you mentioned, if God has told you, if he's leading you to it, where there is promise, there will be provision. So God will lead you to where you need to go. You just gotta follow. Just follow. Do it afraid. Do it afraid. I so appreciate you, Dr. Kane, joining us today.
It has been a pleasure. I certainly hope that people got something that they could grab onto and take it with them and just go and do it. Just go and do it.
Just go and do it. Do it anyway. I love it. Well, you know how we do. We believe in yes. Glendora said good information. Thank you, ladies. You are so welcome. Please, again, if you've watched, sharing is caring. Share this video. Share it to parents. Share it to people who are thinking about going to school. Share it to our young adults who are thinking about going back. Whatever it is, just share the information because you never know who is in need. And if you have any questions about today's session, please just type it in. I always go back to the old, to the ones that we've done, because sometimes people join on and make questions. We can, reach out to you if you have more, need more guidance on something one way or another. And again, this is Tanya, Pastor Tanya, with Worship and Wellness, where we believe in biblical principles with practical steps. Next month is Women's Month. So we have some good things lined up every Monday, 7 p.m. I look forward to seeing you all. 7 p.m. So let's spread the word and let's get well. Let's worship well. God bless and good night, everybody.